Well, it's your boy Nazi with another video for the channel. Welcome back to DMV Sports Zone. And I got two big time guests on the stream today on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. Rico from Street Scores and of course Pedro Schmith. For the few people out there who might not know who you guys are or your channels, could you let the good people out there know about you with the first couple of minutes of our stream? And we'll start with Rico.
All right, bet. Rico from Street Scores. You can follow me on YouTube at Street Scores, on Twitter, Street Scores ATL. Happy to be here, man. Let's get to talking some football.
Yeah, I'm Pedro Schmith. Channel's also Pedro Schmith. Post Washington content almost every single day. And go ahead and follow my Twitter as well, Pedro Schmith YT. And yeah, I appreciate you having us on.
No problem. So yeah, we got an action-packed show for you guys this afternoon, of course, with arguably the craziest week in NFL history, kind of being completed. So first and foremost, what are your guys' thoughts on the Deshaun Watson to the Browns move? 5-year, $230 million contract, fully guaranteed, $80 million more guarantees than any other NFL contract in history. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, I think Watson first off made the right decision because I was no offense to Rico because I know he lives in Atlanta, he loves Atlanta, but I would not have gone to the Falcons. Like Atlanta's a nice city, but like the Falcons roster is not that good. So I'm like, I don't know. I was kind of confused on why he wanted to go to play, in Atlanta if he wanted to win, but I know he's from there. I mean, Rico can tell me, but I'm pretty sure he's from around there. So that wouldn't maybe be a possible spot for him. But I think he picked the right spot in Cleveland because they have a really solid roster. They got Myles Garrett, they got some really good pieces on the defense, Denzel Ward. They've got, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, a really good offensive line. And, it's not a great market. I mean, it's Cleveland, but I guess he wants to win. And they gave him, like you said, all that guaranteed money. His agent did a good job. I know you love him. So I think he picked the right spot, honestly. And I'm surprised, I guess, that they only got 3 firsts and like a third and a fifth, because I thought it was going to be like 3 firsts, some mid-round picks, and like at least one really, really good player. And that didn't happen. So I was surprised with that, but maybe it's because they know a suspension is coming, so they know the value is a little bit lower, because that's a possibility. And you saw how they structure the contract so that the first year he's getting paid almost nothing because
Sleazy business.
Because they know he's going to get suspended, so he doesn't lose any of the money. So I think he's going to get suspended. I hope he does, so we don't have to play him, because we're playing the Browns this year. So when we don't play, hopefully we play him early and he's not playing.
Yeah. And Rico, before you go, I will say with Pedro's point, they didn't have to trade away any of their assets, which is kind of surprising to me, right? Like their running backs, receivers, nobody. So straight up picks. Go ahead, Rico.
No, and I know Amari Cooper's happy to go from Baker Mayfield to Deshaun Watson. Well, first of all, hate the Falcons, so I'm happy that he didn't go to Atlanta. I wouldn't want that. We just beat them. We have to play them again this year. I doubt we was going to beat them this year with Deshaun Watson, no matter who they have on their roster. Do feel bad for my friends though, because 2 nights ago they were celebrating like they won the Super Bowl. They just assumed they had them. It was bad. Party chat was just at an all-time high. Lead. Oh, yeah. Another 28-3 lead. Because it's reported he actually was going to choose the Falcons. Like you said, he's from the area. He was even like a ball boy for Atlanta while he was young. He was a part of some camp and things like that. So he was actually about to go there, and then the Browns swooped in with that $230 million guaranteed. And he was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll reconsider Cleveland. But yeah, like you said, I hope we play them before. Hopefully, if Deshaun Watson ends up getting suspended, I hope we play them before he comes back. And the AFC is loaded, man. It's a gauntlet. Whoever comes out of there is going to be battle tested. They got the edge rushers, they got the quarterbacks, they got players. It's going to be fun.
One thing before you go, Russ, I'm telling you, Russell Wilson's going to regret wanting to go to the AFC. I'm not even saying he should have picked Washington. I'm not saying that at all, even though I wish he did. But you choosing the Broncos, which was his first choice, I mean, you're going to be at best this year, second in your division, but realistically probably third. And then in a couple years, they're going to be third or fourth because Herbert's going to continue to get better. And Russell Wilson, I mean, he's 34, so he's going to start to get a little bit worse. And I mean, eventually they're going to be like the third or fourth team in the division. And now you got the Browns, who I think are better than the Broncos, with Deshaun Watson, or at least on the same level. You got the Bengals, who same level or better. You got the Bills, who are better. You have other teams that I think are better. Maybe the Ravens when they're, when Lamar's on and stuff. So like, that to me, like if they went to Washington or went to Philly, like they're probably the second or third best team in the division or in the NFC, and that's with Brady and Rodgers kind of like they're probably going to be gone in like 2-3 years. So like I don't think he made the right decision, but we'll see. I mean, he wants to compete, but I don't know.
Yeah, and not only did he go to the AFC, he went to arguably the most stacked division in NFL history, AFC West. Yeah. I don't know. You gotta play the Raiders twice a year, the Chargers twice a year, and the Chiefs twice a year. That is a gauntlet.
Chandler Jones, Max Crosby, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Chris Jones, and Frank Clark. Twice a year each.
Yikes. And the Broncos offensive line, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. It's not that good, right?
It's not that good, I don't think.
Yeah.
Still. Have that left tackle who's solid, I think, but besides that.
Garrett Bowles, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Before I give my thoughts, though, I want to shout out everybody in the chat who's joined. Brandon Williams was first. Offseason was definitely crazy. Jarris's Corner, Kurt Schmith. One of the greatest compliments right here. 3 of the best young Commander content creators. Appreciate that comment for sure. Watson top 3. We'll get into that. But no, Tone as well. So with my thoughts on the move, so first and foremost, I gotta shout out my Eritrean brother, David Mulugeta, who was the agent for Deshaun Watson, who basically secured a $230 million guaranteed contract amidst everything that's going on for his client. Kudos to Mulugeta for that. But no, in terms of Deshaun Watson, I said this like right after the move, and I don't want to get this misconstrued. Like when I said to Cleveland, like on a tweet, I didn't mean like, oh, that's a terrible fit. I just meant like it was super surprising because literally a couple days prior, we heard about Cleveland being out, and it was pretty much between the Falcons and the Saints and stuff, and that never came into fruition. So that was sort of why I was surprised by the move. In terms of football, it's a great move. You got a stacked running back group, right? Obviously with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, who you don't have to trade away. I thought they were going to have to trade at least one of those guys, but no. You have Amari Cooper at receiver. You're probably going to add a receiver either through free agency or the draft. You have arguably the best offensive line in the league still. You have a pretty solid defense who potentially could get Jadeveon Clowney back. I mean, it's a great football fit. And I know the AFC North is stacked too. I mean, you got the Ravens, you got the Bengals who just made the Super Bowl. The Steelers though have Mitch Trubisky, so I don't believe in them. I don't care. I know Mike Tomlin is the coach, and you gotta rep Mike Tomlin because he is from Virginia. But like I don't know, man. I feel like they're gonna be very mediocre this year. But no, I like it. And Deshaun Watson, obviously, a lot of off the field stuff. But in terms of on the field, he is not even arguable. I think he's a top 5, top 6 QB in the league. And for all those people who say, oh, he's been out a year, he has to go down the rankings. That's not how football works. And that's not how quarterback rankings work either, because quarterbacks can literally get injured. Like a Dak Prescott can blow out his entire leg and then next year show you why he's a top 10 quarterback. So I like the move. I like the football move for Deshaun Watson. It's just crazy, though, that there are actually superstars now that want to go to Cleveland, don't want to come to us. And it just tells you all you need to know. But, I mean, I guess we can get to Abdullah's comment here. Watson, top 3 quarterback. Where would you guys rank Watson among, like, the quarterback crop right now?
I wouldn't put him top 3 because, like, if I want to win a game, I'd rather have Mahomes, Rodgers, and Brady right now. Like, Watson needs to show a little bit more in the playoffs. And, like, it's like, I'm not going to, lower him because it's been a year, but like Brady, Rodgers, and Mahomes all produced at a very high level this year. So I'm at minimum putting those guys above him, and I would put Allen above him for sure. I would put Josh Allen because, again, he's done it in the playoffs as well. So I'll put him there. And then I think I would put Watson at 5. He's close. I saw your ranking. I think he's close to Burrow. Him and Burrow are kind of neck and neck. But I think right now Watson might be a little bit better. But it's pretty close. He's in that top 5, top 6 range, just like you said. He's either 5 or 6 for me.
I agree. It's somewhere definitely in that range. And it's hard to compare him to everybody else because last time we saw him, his team was terrible. I think he led the NFL in yards and still can only win 4 games. And so it's going to be really interesting to see what he does with a cast around him because Pat Mahomes was drafted and they built the team around him like immediately before. He never really had to go out there and really struggle and necessarily super carry a team, even though Pat Mahomes is great. With Deshaun Watson was just out there, I mean, guys getting hurt, traded away, Diop traded away and stuff like that. And he just had to make do with what he had. So I think he's definitely in my top 6, but we'll get into that top 3 range when we see him finally produce and win playoff games.
Exactly. And he's only 26 years old. He just missed the year. He wasn't injured, right? He just missed the year, and who knows? He could surge up those rankings this year, maybe the latter half of the year if he does get suspended, or potentially in the future. But Outlaw King, we'll get to this comment a little bit later. But the next thing I want to discuss with you guys is obviously the Washington Commanders, right? Free agency. So first and foremost, what is your overall grade on the Commanders' move thus far? Your overall letter grade?
It's so hard because it's incomplete. It's like an NA because you don't know because they make moves and they're still kind of waiting for things to unfold, waiting for guys to get released and stuff to make the move. So I would kind of say incomplete, but if I were to grade some of the moves they, did already, the Wentz one, I mean, that's kind of not free agency, so I'm not going to talk about that. You want me to?
Yeah. This is basically the offseason moves thus far. Yeah.
Wentz, it's I don't really have a problem with the player. I think he's a solid QB, a big upgrade over Heineke, and he's got some potential, but I don't think even though if he hits the price we gave up doesn't really matter. I don't like giving up it's going to be a second, hopefully a second and a third and a pick swap and $28 million. I know people the new trendy thing is to say cap is a myth, and it's partly is a myth, but still $20 million of fully guaranteed money, that definitely hurt us in terms of our cap space. And yes, you can manipulate it, but the thing is, the only way to manipulate that contract, I think, is to push some of that money to next year. And I think they should move a little bit of it, 3, 4, 5 million. But if they, move 10, 15 mil to that next year, well, if we cut them next year, it's going to be a big cap hit. So that's kind of trading for Carson Wentz did definitely take out a bunch of our cap space. And I just didn't think, I feel like we were outbidding against ourselves. Maybe there were some other teams, but I really don't think any other team was going to give up what we gave up. And especially also considering we were an NFC team. So that's a little bit of a discount in my opinion. We went from offering a 4th and a 6th to a second, a third, or a future second, a third, and a pick swap. So the move itself, the player I'm fine with. I think he can be good, and I'd rather have him 100% over Jimmy G and maybe even Baker Mayfield. But depending on what they ask for Baker, that's really what I'm wondering about. But giving up, I think what we gave up was a little bit too much. But now moving on to the moves so far, cutting Eric Flowers initially for me, I gave it an F grade initially because again we didn't have anyone to replace him yet. But now that we did replace him with, Norwell, I think it's a solid move because Norwell played a little bit worse than Eric Flowers last year. And I know it's 4 years ago, but last time he did play with Ron Rivera and John Matsko, he was an All-Pro. I don't think he's going to be an All-Pro this year. But playing under John Matsko with a better offensive line in a scheme he's familiar with, I guarantee you if he's healthy, he will be better than he was last year. So I think, and you're getting that for probably a $3-4 million cap hit this year. It's a 2-year, $10 million contract. So I love that move. The re-signings they made, McKissick, Cam Sims, all solid. McCain, that's all right. That's a C+ grade for McCain. And then the one I have a problem with is releasing Ioannidis and not bringing back Settle. Because if they would have released Ioannidis and brought back Settle, I would have loved that move. but they didn't do that. So again, that's why I kind of give it an incomplete, because I feel like they're waiting for these players to get released and sign them, because there is, for comp picks, if you sign a free agent, it counts against your comp pick for next year. But if a team releases a player and you sign them, it does not count against that. So I feel like they're waiting for someone like Star Lutulelli, who got cut. Maybe they'll sign him, some other guys like that. So that could definitely change our grade. I feel like so far it's been okay. Annoying that it's been one signing outside of Washington, and it was a Carolina Panther, former Carolina Panther. So I'm hoping we make some more moves, though.
Yeah, I pretty much agree for the most part, especially like when you say cap space is a myth, it is kind of not, because other teams are finessing it. This makes it look like a myth, but at the same time, it's super Saints, boy. They restructured everybody. Yeah. They just
29 million in cap space though, after being 40 million in the hole.
Yeah, like I don't understand that, but you could definitely see that us bringing Carson Wentz led to us releasing Matt Ioannidis, most notably. And I think maybe you keep Eric Flowers and bring in Andrew Norwell if you don't trade for Carson Wentz. So it's like a myth, but it also isn't. It just depends on how you finesse it. We're not one of those guys finessing it.
Yeah, so, we're not creative.
So, we're not. So it is definitely not a myth for us. But yeah, Carson Wentz, I agree. The player I don't hate. For me, of course, the main reason I hate it is just it takes us out of contention of possibly taking one of the quarterbacks at the top of this draft. And the reason I prefer a quarterback in this draft, because how are you going to get one of the top guys in another draft? We're going to have to lose a lot of games, which I don't see us doing. Our roster is too talented to land with a top 7 pick, or you're going to have to do an RG3 like trade to get one of those top guys. So, but yeah, also the cap hit, the picks we gave up. But like you said, the Carson Wentz, the player, I'm actually fairly excited about, to finally give Scott Turner a guy that can, is relatively mobile. We kind of had that in Taylor Heineke, but for some reason he didn't trust Taylor Heineke to do a lot of the mobile stuff. He trusted Kyle Allen to do it. I don't know. But now we can throw deep down the field. So Terry McLaurin, this is the best receiver Carson Wentz has ever had. This is the best quarterback Terry McLaurin's ever had. So I think ultimately this season will definitely be more fun. And then of course I like the Andrew Norwell signing as well a lot. Not to dive too deep into it, because Pedro hit everything perfectly, but the fact that we're basically getting a higher ceiling but lower floor Eric Flowers for half the price. At his best, Andrew Norwell is better than Eric Flowers, but Eric Flowers is definitely more consistent, played better the most recent season. But like you said, he's coming back to his normal scheme. John Moscow brings the best out of everybody. He's going to be back with him. So we may not get back to 2017 All-Pro Andrew Norwell, but he should definitely be better than what he was for the Jaguars, and I'm excited about that.
Okay. People always call me pessimistic Nazi, but I'm a realist, guys. So before getting to my thoughts, I want to ask you guys this question. Isn't Carson Wentz going to a worse situation in DC than he was with Indianapolis, outside of the whole Terry is greater than Michael Pittman Jr. thing? Like overall, in terms of total roster, offense, defense, isn't he going to a worse situation than he had in Indy?
I would say that our pass protection is slightly better, and we have Terry. Other than that, I would probably give the Colts the edge in pretty much most categories. And I see what you're saying. If he couldn't make the playoffs with that team, why would he make it with this team? And technically, the division he's coming from is, even though the NFC least is still kind of the NFC least, the AFC South last year was pretty bad. I definitely see the argument.
Yeah, I think
have Derrick Henry.
I think their offensive line last year wasn't as good as it usually was. Like, I think PFF ranked them as like the 12th ranked offensive line. They had like a bunch of injuries. So maybe our offensive line last year was better than theirs, but normally their offensive line's a lot better. Obviously, running back, they've got a huge upgrade there. I think our defense is maybe more talented, but their defense for sure was better than ours last year. And I'd say we would have an upgrade at tight end with Logan Thomas, John Bates. They had Mo Alley Cox and Jack Doyle, and then receiver. Like we did have like a slight edge there, but like it's not like that much of an edge, because we have Terry, they have Pittman, who's good, but besides that, both of us really had no one. So I think he had a better situation also in a scheme that he's more familiar with. So I do think that he was in a better situation. One thing I saw someone bring up that was a good point. Like he was playing on like 2 bum ankles for the whole season because Aaron Donald like stomped on him or whatever. So like I don't know if that had any effect on his play. Maybe it did. I just thought it was a good point to bring up. But I agree with you. Like he was in a better situation last year. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Outlaw King, why are you a fan? No, I'm obviously a fan of this team. I'm gonna root for them. I'm just saying, like, going into last season, I remember there was a lot of talk, and even midway through the season, of how the Colts had a Super Bowl contending roster outside of Carson Wentz, and they could even get to the playoffs. They were 9-8. So all I'm saying is that I expect this to be at that 9-ish win marker this year, but like, in Ron Rivera's 3rd year as the head coach here in DC, will that be good enough for him to continue coaching throughout his 5-year contract that he keeps saying that he will coach through? I don't know. But yeah, in terms of the offseason moves overall, I agree with you guys on the Carson Wentz move. I think it's definitely an upgrade over Taylor Heineke and definitely provides a lot more tools that Scott Turner, Ron Rivera can work with for the offense this season. But I will say this. We haven't really addressed our 3 other biggest needs, in my opinion, in middle linebacker, or at least improved, those needs in middle linebacker, free safety, and wide receiver. Free safety, we did re-sign Bobby McCain, but I think a lot of us wanted an upgrade this offseason. I know Bobby McCain had that 2-pick game, week 18 against Jake Fromm, New York Giants. But yeah, but like, I mean, you guys could even go to Protex channel. He's been roasting Bobby McCain for the entire season and even talked up how the last game pretty much raised his price tag by a couple of million. So, I mean, I don't know. I want an upgrade there. We didn't get it. Maybe we'll get it in the draft. Who knows? But middle linebacker, wide receiver, we did nothing. We did nothing to improve those areas this offseason. Just to be honest with you guys, I would like a Bobby Wagner, even though he did sort of fall off a little bit last season. But I think he would be perfect with a Cole Holcomb on one side and a Jamin Davis on the other, and helping, take them under his wing and stuff. But wide receiver, you can't trust Curtis Samuel, man. Like, I know before last season he wasn't injury prone. I get it. But at this point, like, you shouldn't go into the 2022 season thinking like Curtis Samuel is going to automatically be your wide receiver too. Like, I think you need to address the position, whether it be through free agency or the draft, preferably free agency, in my opinion, because of the fact that, like, you only have so few draft assets, especially after giving up a 3rd-round pick this year to get Carson Wentz. So, but I don't know. You guys have thoughts on that, like addressing our other needs outside of quarterback?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I'll say is I think Bob McCain is not great. Of course he's not. But I think people like overhate him. Like sometimes like they say he's like a complete bum, which I don't think is true. Yeah. Like he is like an average starting free safety. At times he's an above average free safety. At times he's also below average. Like he's in that middle range. If you have a good defense around him, he saw it last year in the first half of the season. He was awful. Like he was a bum in the first half of the season. But you have to think, so were a lot of the other guys. He was playing in a totally new system with other guys around him that were in a new system. And the second half of the year, he was playing pretty well. I think I saw a stat like when quarterbacks were targeting him, he allowed a 65 quarterback or passer rating, which like the average is like a 90. So that's really good. And I don't think he's an amazing player, but Ron Rivera teams usually just have an average free safety there. So you get him for cheap. It's like a $2.8 million cap hit. That's fine with me. I would have liked Quandre Diggs. I would have liked some of these other guys, but it is what it is. Going to the receiver position, I don't know. I saw a tweet like a month ago looking over like the biggest free agent receiver signings in the last 3 years. Almost all of them suck. Like almost all of them except for like Allen Robinson, a few others.
It would have been great here.
What?
I think Allen Robinson would have been great here.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, in terms of like most of these receiver signings in free agency that you pay big money to, they do not turn out to be great. Like they're hitting free agency for a reason. Like there's some signings that you go for cheap, and I think they could work out. Like Cedric Wilson, I would have loved him here, but I think at this point, not many great receivers left. Maybe you can go for a mid-tier guy or low-tier guy like Zach Pascal to give some familiarity to Wentz. But I think I'm usually not a first-round receiver guy. I almost never am. But this year, since there's like 3 or 4 guys that like people are debating whether they're like 1, 2, or 3, or 4. I am 100% in team trade back this year. Trade back from 11 to anywhere from like 15 to 25 and get the best receiver available or whatever. But, if there's a great corner available or whatever, accumulate some of those draft picks that you lost from the Carson Wentz trade, still get a receiver that you could have gotten at 11 at like 18, because like there's going to be teams that have, the third ranked receiver on your board at 1 on their board. So like, I feel like that's what they can do. Get a first round receiver that, hey, he might not go out there and get like 1,000+ yards, but he can go out there and be an asset to you, like 700+ yards. So that's how I would address it. Middle linebacker, I totally agree with you. Like, I don't know why. I mean, I guess it's still early, right? There's still a lot of guys out there, but they need to get a veteran. I don't care about a rookie. Like, I do not want Nakobe Dean or Devin Lloyd, because I mean, maybe you can draft them, but like, you still need a veteran in there because that guy's young. He's going to be calling the defense, and Jamin Davis is going to be right next to him, who is super raw. And then Cole Holcomb, who is a little bit of a veteran, but he's still young at this point, and he's been playing all over the field. So I love Alexander Johnson. I know he's a little bit in more of like a 3-4 defense, but he would be my number 1 free agent target overall, honestly, right now. I think he would be a great asset to our linebacking room. I thought Leighton Vander Esch wouldn't be bad, and the Cowboys signed him for $3 million. Like, we couldn't do that. 1 year, $3 million deal. Linebacker, in my opinion, is our biggest need by far right now. We need to address it in free agency. Even if, like, I know a lot of people hate this, and I don't want it either, but like, even if it's AJ Klein, who the Bills released, who played for Ron Rivera, like, he's not great, but at least he's like serviceable. Like, I think he's better than Bostic. He's better than Mayo. And that's who you had as your starters the last couple years. So if you have them and draft a rookie, that would be okay with me. You just have to get a veteran. Like, you can't go in next year with all rookies and second or third year players as linebacker position. I just don't think you can.
Yeah, I mean, anybody's better than Bostic at this point. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead. I don't mean to roast the guy, but yeah, go ahead.
No, man, that was terrible. Bostic experiment, man. We all knew that was gonna fail. But to the point of Bobby McCain being better the second half of the year, so was Landon Collins, William Jackson. A lot of guys in that Jack Del Rio defense didn't really find themselves until the second half of the year. So, like, I agree that he was terrible in the first half, but quite a bit of people were. I'm not a big Bobby McCain fan. I would still like to, like Pedro said, trade back, because you could probably get Daxton Hill later in the first round, and I think he could basically be Marcus Williams but faster. So I would love to get him, or just like Pedro said, it's an argument between which receiver is the best receiver. It's a really deep class. If you trade back, the guy you think is the best receiver may still be there, and you get some of those picks back from the Carson Wentz situation. So I think, honestly, because it definitely seems like a quarterback is off the board. Ron Rivera loves Carson Wentz. He sees him potentially as our franchise guy for the next few years. So I think trading back makes the most sense right there. As far as attacking receiver, as far as linebacker, I agree, man. Bobby Wagner would be so nice, but I don't know if we're even looking at him. I believe AJ Johnson from the Broncos is still available. I would like to bring in somebody. I don't think we're going to address it in the first round, because love Nakobe Dean, but he's another outside linebacker. You're not about to just take back-to-back outside linebackers in the first round. So, yeah, I think middle linebacker, we have to do something before the free agency is done. Even if it's, like Pedro said, a lower-tier guy, and then maybe you draft a guy later, like a Darian Bevers from Cincinnati, maybe in like the second or fourth round or something. But we can't go into the draft without somebody from free agency at linebacker. Hopefully it's a bigger name, but I doubt it. But yeah, Natty, I agree with you. We haven't upgraded the positions we really needed to upgrade: middle linebacker, free safety, and receiver yet. I mean, we brought back a guy that's cool in Bobby McCain, but I'm willing to spend a first-round pick on Daxton Hill to replace Bobby McCain. Bobby McCain can play in the slot if we need to. He's a solid slot corner as well.
Yeah. Door gunner right here. Someone has to want to trade up, right? It takes two to tango. So I don't know. The point that I wanted to get to, though, yes.
I think a team. Real quick. I think a team will probably want to trade up. We got that perfect pick at 11, in my opinion, for a quarterback, where like someone like the Steelers, who they signed Trubisky for like whatever 2-year, $15 million, whatever. It was a cheap deal, so they're not committed to him. Like, they're not committed to him at all. Like, they can cut him after next year and it's fine or whatever. They can do the same thing the Bears did and they traded from, I think the Bears traded from like 20 to 11 or something. So we could do something similar. The Steelers could do something similar to that, and we get like 19. We go back 8 spots and get like a second or something. Like I think the Bears got like a first and a third last year. So if it's for a quarterback, it's usually more expensive. So you got the Steelers behind us. I'm trying to think what other teams are behind us that could use a QB. Like could the I'm trying to think. Like maybe the Lions want to trade back into because they have a later first round pick. It's 30 seconds, so that's a kind of an issue. Might be an issue for us, but like they need a QB as well. Like they might want a QB, so that could be like there's teams behind us. So I feel like there will be a team wanting to trade up with us this year. It's because we're in that sweet spot where there's gonna be like one of the QBs might go ahead of us. Like I think the Panthers might take one. But now that the Broncos are out, like the Colts actually might be a team that could trade with us. We'll see.
Okay. Kurt Smith. So this was the point that I wanted to discuss earlier, and goes back to my previous point about not expecting Curtis Samuel to be your wide receiver 2, or not going into the offseason expecting it in the sense that they should add to the position. I don't know if you guys got a chance to hear what Ron had to say about Curtis Samuel and how confident he is in his availability come the start of the season. But like, I mean, does this just add to the need that we have at receiver outside of Terry?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I agree that you can't depend on Curtis Samuel. It sucks that we have as much money tied up into him as we do. And I definitely think that prevented us from even possibly going after a guy like Allen Robinson, especially after Christian Kirk ran up the market. I just don't understand that signing. So I definitely feel like wide receiver is a bigger need than I thought it would be at this point. I thought we would address it somehow, or get somebody in free agency, maybe like a low-key guy, but like it is, I wouldn't say it's time to press the red button, but right now it's Terry McLaurin and others. We don't even have DeAndre Carter on the roster technically yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not concerned at all right now just because like it's still so early in like free agency. Like the top guys are gone, but like I even heard like Robert Woods might be traded. Like there's guys that are going to be available. There's low-key guys we could go after, and I think we'll hopefully address it in the draft. If we don't address it in the draft, that's when I'm like, okay, like that's when I hit the panic button. But I do agree it's still a big position of need. And I totally agree with you, Najee. Like I was saying this for a while. Like I think Curtis Samuel will be possibly number 2 this year. I hope De'Ami Brown will, get better this year and produce, but I don't know. Like I know if Terry's healthy, he's going to completely ball out, and he's been pretty healthy his first 3 years. But like Curtis, who knows? He's still like recovering from that injury. So like, who knows if he's going to be, we can't totally rely on him if he's healthy. I think he's going to be good, but we don't know. We don't know. I'm hoping though. And same thing with De'Ami Brown and some of the other players we have. But yeah, we definitely need to add another guy. Another thing I think we need, like Cam Sims obviously isn't like one of our top guys, but I think we need to involve him more than like last year. Like he only had 15 catches, and I feel like every time he got targeted, he pretty much caught the ball. If it was a good target, he dropped like 1 or something. But like he was good last year when he was on the field, and it was just weird to see him not like. It was weird seeing guys that were clearly worse than him get more snaps than him, and like I don't know why that's happening because it seems like the coaching staff loves him. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree there. JC mentioned Drake London. So if we do stay put at 11, what receiver options do you think Washington should potentially draft there if we don't trade back?
My favorite receiver is Garrett Wilson. I don't know how much he would fit here because he can play outside and slot, but he's kind of more of a slot guy. So I don't know how he would fit here with Curtis Samuel kind of being the same thing where he can play in the slot and the outside. But I mean, I guess the NFL is becoming a little more positionless, but he's my guy. If not, I like Chris Olave solid. Drake London would be an option. I'm kind of scared with the big body receivers, not great route runners, but I mean, it is a, good skill set. I mean, it is good to have a tall receiver for Carson Wentz, but I've been scarred by Josh Doxson. And so, I mean, my guy's Garrett Wilson. I like Chris Olave too. Jameson Williams too. Like he's like someone's gonna get him later than he was gonna go, and they're gonna be happy with it.
To be fair, Michael Pittman was a big body receiver, right?
Yeah,
And
he's no. I'm not saying that like big body receivers can't work. Like if you're dominant, you're dominant. But like they just like route running translates more. Like being an elite route runner translates more than being a big body receiver, in my opinion.
No, I definitely agree with that. I prefer a route runner, but I mean the best combination is to get a big guy that can route run. You know, there's like you have the Keenan Allens and stuff like that. So I mean, of course, George Pickens is my guy. I think ultimately we're gonna look back 5 years from now, he may end up being the best receiver. But out of the sure things, well, even though Jameson Williams isn't necessarily a sure thing, but right now my number one receiver is Jameson Williams. Like Pedro said, he's probably gonna go later than he should. But just talent wise, I love Jameson Williams. If we're gonna get a guy high, he'd be the guy.
This is coming from a Georgia Bulldog too fan.
Oh man, you know how much fear I felt in my heart.
One thing I'm saying Garrett Wilson's my number one now just because like the injury concerns, but like most talented for me is definitely Jameson Williams. Like if he was healthy, for sure would be my number one, and still honestly could be depending on like if they give an update about when he's gonna be back.
Good point. I mean, yeah, as a Georgia Bulldog fan, that man struck fear in my heart all season, man. I hated having to go against him, even though we only had to go against him for a little bit. But man, it sucked. So yeah, I mean, as a guy that had to go against him with arguably one of the best defenses in college football history, I know what he can do. So yeah, Jameson Williams is, I mean, even despite the injury, if he has to take a year off, I'm still taking Jameson Williams because I think you could have a future star in him. But also, like I said, my boy George Pickens, who may end up going in the second, to me is basically just the alpha dog mentality. Keenan Allen, he has the same height. You can argue he's probably a little bit faster, and he just has that super alpha dog mentality that I think he's going to end up on a random team like the Buffalo Bills or something, and end up balling out because he's going to go later, which means he's going to go to a better situation, which is kind of how it works out for quarterbacks too. The later you go in the draft as a quarterback, as a receiver, the better, because you're going to go to a better team and probably end up producing way sooner as well.
Yeah, Jameson Williams. So I'm on the other side of things when it comes to bias. I know I'm a Bama fan, but like straight out, Jameson Williams is my number one guy, our receiver for us. It just sucks that he had to blow out his knee in the national championship game and will likely miss a good part of this season. Okay. For Bulldog fans across the country, across the world, probably doesn't. But for Bama fans, it does. But we'll be back next year. It's all good. But no, so yeah, Jameson Williams. But it would be cool to get another Ohio State receiver, Garrett Wilson, potentially, or maybe even Chris Olave a little bit later in the draft. Potentially pair him up with a Curtis Samuel from Ohio State and a Terry McLaurin from Ohio State.
Technically, Jameson Williams is from Ohio State too, as well.
Yeah,
true.
Technically,
yep. And the number one receiver next year is going to be from Ohio State too. Jackson Smith and Jibba.
Yep. Okay, so we got through that, but let me ask you guys about this. So obviously the J.D. McKissic situation, saga, whatever you want to call it, was pretty interesting this past week with reports. And I even remember making my first free agency recap video with right after J.D. McKissic signed allegedly with the Buffalo Bills. But, you know, obviously he did not, and it was a late minute decision, but he ultimately signed back with Washington. What are your thoughts on that situation that went down? Also, the Bills GM's Brandon Beane's thoughts that he basically discussed in the press conference after the move, and how he talked about how, you know, it was pretty much sleazy business by the Washington Commanders organization. What are your thoughts on all that?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I have no idea how things go behind the scenes because I'm not a GM, so he knows more than me. But like, it's legal tampering for a reason. Like, you can't sign your deal until Wednesday at 4 p.m. So like, if a guy wants to back out, he can back out. If a team wants to, you know, match, they can match. I mean, I'm just more like, I don't think Washington did anything wrong in terms of like wanting to get their guy back. But I'm just like, what is going on with this like front office this offseason? It seems like everything they're doing is just weird. Like why not offer him $3 million in the start of free agency or even before free agency started. Like, I don't understand that. Like, they're waiting for another team to give him a deal before they even offer him one. Like, that's what same thing happened with Tim Settle. Like, that's what happened with Settle. That's why they lost him, because they didn't offer him a deal until he was already signing with, them. And also another thing, we saw the thing with Matt Ioannidis. His agent was mad. I'm kind of siding with Washington on this one. Like, I understand why Matt Ioannidis is mad, but like, things change. Your cap situation changes when you trade for a guy that's $28 million in the cap. That changes your whole cap situation. But I also don't understand, like, they knew their cap situation once they traded for Wentz, which is a week before Monday. Why did you wait a week to release Ioannidis and Flowers? Because you could have released them on Monday or before then and been able to go ahead and sign these big name free agents, or just give your guys, McKissick and other guys, an offer. Like, to me, that was just mind-boggling to me. Like, why are you waiting till Wednesday to release these guys when it literally does not benefit either party? Like, it's bad for Washington because it takes longer for them to get to the cap space, and they can't off. Like, they could have gone Settle earlier, and so maybe they didn't know they're gonna release him until later, which again, that's another bad thing. But it's just been really weird, this front office. Like, it seems like a bunch of people are having issues with what they're doing.
No, I completely agree. And to add to that, I mean, it does suck to burn a bridge with the Bills, because I mean, apparently the Bills have pretty much been like our consultants in how we're going to build our franchise. They said something even like daily calls, like making sure we're okay, do this, do that. So that kind of sucks there. But I do agree. I feel like it was legal tampering. So technically it wasn't like he was signed. The Bills GM is making it seem like J.D. McKissick was pinned the paper about to write his signature, and then we swooped in and took him. It was legal tampering. So technically you're allowed to tamper until Wednesday. But it does suck that whatever we did to offend them, even though I don't feel like we necessarily did anything wrong in that part, it sucks to burn that bridge. And I agree with the whole Matt Ioannidis thing. You traded for Carson Wentz before Monday. So why, if you knew Carson Wentz was going to eat up all of this cap space, that you would wait to release these guys Wednesday when you already knew that you were going to have to release them because of Carson Wentz cap hit? So I think it has been, it looks like we don't know what we're doing. It looks like we're making stuff up as we go along. Like, we don't have a plan. The only positive I can see to not offering J.D. McKissick early is because maybe they just didn't have a good idea of what he would take. Like, maybe they didn't ask him, what would you be willing to take? I think they were afraid to possibly go out there and offer 5, and then he'd be like, oh, I would have took $3 million, but give me the 5 type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what maybe they were thinking that, but like, they should know what he's
that's what I'm saying.
Like,
just ask him.
Yeah, or ask the agent. Ask the agent,
something.
like, what is it looking like you're gonna get this year? Like, what does it look like your client's gonna get? And if they say $4 million, let's say like we'll offer you $3 million and then negotiate from there. Whatever. Like, it's just been weird, honestly. And maybe it's just how they do things, and I don't know. We'll see if it works. We'll see if it works.
Yeah. I agree 100%, especially like with Rico's point about us just burning a bridge, right? Like, Buffalo has been, or at least their front office has been, super helpful for us, at least with Ron Rivera being coach here in DC and sort of helping him, get this organization back on the right track. But like, I just think it's going to hurt. It's just adding on another thing that might hurt future negotiations with other teams in the NFL, right? Like, and not just other teams, other players see this too. Like, whether it be the Matt Ioannidis situation, even the Landon Collins situation, which I heard was not smooth sailing towards the end. And then now you have, the J.D. McKissick situation. I just think it's gonna hurt us in the end, trying to attract a lot more players to come to DC. Hurt more than what's already gone on with this organization when it comes to like all the sexual harassment and obviously the decades of losing and stuff. So it's like, I don't know, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard when you just stack one thing on top of another and try to field a winning roster. It's gonna be tough, man. It's gonna be tough. You guys have thoughts on that?
I agree because, I mean, Russell Wilson didn't want to come here even to the team that he grew up watching, you know, playing football as a young kid before the way we did at Matt Ioannidis, before the way we did Landon Collins, before the J.D. McKissick situation with the Bills. So, yeah, I agree. It's going to be tough in the future trying to make connections. I mean, you see it took us 2/3, technically a third and a second to get Carson Wentz. Maybe a team with better rapport around the NFL could probably pull that trade for less. You know, I definitely feel like a lot of players and a lot of other teams don't like this organization. I feel like Dan Snyder's the majority of it, but now we're adding to it. Now you're like, oh, okay, Ron Rivera did that. Marty Herney did that too. Martin Mayhew did that. And it's just adding to the reason why players and coaches don't want to come here. And if they do, they're going to ask for more than they would ask for another organization.
Yeah. And I think the worst thing is building or just making your relationships with the agents worse, because that's the worst thing, because one agent has whatever amount of clients. Some agents only have 5 clients, but some agents have 30, 40 plus clients, and that's they're not going to want to deal with Washington as much as they did before. I mean, I guess their job is to do what the player wants, but it's just not a good look, and it's not something you want to do. And I mean, they even with the Brandon Sheriff thing, when they said oh, we offered him the highest paid guard, he apologized. He had to apologize to Brandon Sheriff and his agent for saying that. And I don't think he said anything that bad, but still he has to go and apologize to his agent because of the relationships that you have.
Yeah, and for the viewers who thought we might not be talking about Sheriff, just wait a bit. No, so yeah, and on the agent point, I mean, we talked about Mulugeta a little bit earlier, right? Mulugeta, at least when he was here in DC, had Haskins, Collins, and Watson, right? He represents all 3 of those guys. I think Mulugeta representing Watson had a lot to do with Watson not coming here to DC, or not even being interested in Washington as a legit option, right? With everything that went down with Haskins, for how piss poor his play on the field was, it's still his client, right? And then you got obviously Landon Collins, who again, his ending here in DC did not go over well as well. So, but I the next thing I want to discuss is what Kurt Schmith discussed here in the comment section, and it is our depth, not just on the O-line, but also on the D-line. What are you guys' thoughts on, I know you guys discussed a little bit earlier, Ioannidis and Settle, but even the O-line, do you think the O-line actually got worse this offseason so far?
I mean, it 100% got worse. I mean, because you lose. I think Andrew Norwell will. I mean, I guess he's not direct. He is replacing Eric Flowers, I guess. So I think Andrew Norwell, honestly, this year will play better than Eric Flowers did. So I think that'll be a slight upgrade. But then you lose Brandon Sheriff, which I think was a good move. I'm not saying Brandon Sheriff is not good. He is. He's a great guard. But I think moving on from him was the right move. But it is definitely a downgrade. And I like Schweitzer. I like Schweitzer a ton. I think he's a good guard. But it will be a little bit of a downgrade. So, I mean, the question is, I think Leno might be the same, maybe a little bit better because it's his second year in the system. Cosme, I think that's where our offensive line will get better, because not only will Cosme hopefully take a big second-year leap, but also he played in 8 games last year. So, that is 8 games where Cosme was not playing for us, and he was our best right tackle. So maybe it'll all cancel each other out, and we'll see what we do at the, getting another guard. We'll see, because we still could draft a guy. I think drafting a guy in the middle rounds and sitting him behind Schweitzer, letting him, because there's guards that start all the time in their first year in the mid rounds. So Trey Smith, so you can do that and have him compete, and maybe he goes out and he's a baller and he can start out right guard. If not, you develop him for a year. So I'm fine, honestly, with our offensive line. Yes, there definitely could be some upgrades, but I think we'll be fine. Just sign some guys to get some more depth. D-line, I mean, I think, I don't know. We lost. I think losing Settle is a big hit, because I did not think we should have gone back if we were keeping Ioannidis and Payne. But losing Ioannidis, bringing back Settle definitely made sense as that third guy. Maybe, yeah, they just didn't offer him really anything. So that was a bad move in my opinion. But like Combs reported this a ton. They're kind of waiting for these guys to get released because they know there's going to be movement there. So I think they're waiting to get another D tackle in free agency where it really won't affect their comp pick. Because again, if you sign a guy who got released, it doesn't affect your comp pick for next year. So I think that's really going into their thinking, which honestly it should a little bit at least. And maybe they'll get a veteran there. I think what they need to do at edge though, they need a veteran edge rusher there. Like, no, not Kerrigan, but like Chandler Jones. Not Chandler Jones. What's his name? Who's the guy that got who's that guy that got released yesterday by the Seahawks? Dunlap. Carlos Dunlap. Yeah. He would be a really good option. I don't know if he probably wants to start, so maybe that wouldn't be option. But we need a guy that can come in, be a veteran leader that can help Chase, help Montez, with their moves, with like how they're going to approach things. Because I think Kerrigan did help them a ton in their first year, just being that veteran in the room. So you can get a baller who can, like Dunlap, who can ball out for us if one of those guys gets hurt, but at least get a veteran that can play okay for you if, Chase or Montez goes down. I think that is a pretty big need there. You got James Smith-Williams, who I think is our best depth piece who can play inside and outside, but they definitely need to add a guy or two, a veteran and maybe even a rookie. But I think the D-line depth, in my opinion, is more concerning than O-line. But our starters are great, but, we'll see.
Yeah, and I pretty much agree. Like the strengths of our team last year were offensive line and defensive line. And moving into this year, the offensive line a little bit weaker, but I think overall the moves that we made were smart, and it was worth it. And the defensive line we still have all the starters, so we're still top heavy, but we just thinned out on depth. And I agree, if we can get some low key guys in free agency, that would be nice. But this is going to be one of the deepest drafts that we're probably ever going to see, because with COVID-19, some guys stayed for another eligible year. So there's far more players even available in this draft than a usual draft ever probably will be. Especially the draft before this and the draft after this, a lot more guys are coming out. So better players are going to slide. So I think we'll be able to get some really good depth at offensive line or defensive line later in the draft for sure. But yeah, ultimately I agree that we're technically taking a slight step back offensive line wise as far as starters go, but I think it's definitely worth it. We weren't going to keep Brandon Sheriff. Wes Schweitzer is great. I am worried about Wes Schweitzer not being our backup, because if he gets hurt, who's starting? I love Wes Schweitzer because he can plug in left guard, center, and right guard. So
yeah, I think Sadiq will. I don't know. I think they're going to bring in someone else, whether it's a guy in the draft or free agency, but I think Sadiq's going to be their depth piece. And honestly, I didn't really like him at tackle, but I thought he was solid at guard. He's got talent. So, going into another, because his first year was pretty much a red shirt. So going into another year with John Matsko, who we need to take advantage of him being here, because he's 71. Pete Hainers was 70 and he retired. So Matsko could retire this next season, or he's going to retire soon probably. So, or maybe he won't, but probably will retire soon. So we got to take advantage of that. So that's why I would not mind drafting a guy in like the third round or whatever, some mid-round pick, if we do trade back and get some more picks, because we have an elite offensive line coach who can help develop these guys. And Sadiq Charles will get another year development. I think he's we'll see if he can be our backup. We don't want him starting for a full season, but hey, maybe he's going to ball out this year. But yeah, we still need to adjust our depth positions at guard and even tackle, because what's his name? Lucas is still a free agent.
True.
Yeah. I don't want to repeat your guys' points, but I definitely agree with what you guys had to say about the offensive line and defensive line. The defensive line, though, last year, even going into last season, we talked about how the depth for the defensive end position was not great, right? And now we just sort of deteriorated or destroyed the depth in the defensive interior with Ioannidis and Settle no longer being on this team. So I definitely agree with Pedro in that we'll probably add to the position, whether it be a star Lutulelli, I can't even pronounce the name, or someone else who has connections with Ron Rivera or the Carolina Panthers. But on offensive line, the only thing I'll say is that not you guys, of course, because you guys are very astute analysts of this team, but it's just funny to me. I even mentioned this on a tweet this week that you know, a lot of people were roasting the Brandon Sheriff to the Jacksonville Jaguars move, saying, oh, Brandon Sheriff doesn't want to go to a winning team. He's just in it for the money. He's going to football purgatory, essentially, right? And then, yeah, people calling it a terrible move. And then we hear the Norwell to Washington move, right? And Norwell played for the Jacksonville Jaguars last year. So what is it? Like, I think both are solid moves, right? Like, I don't think you could say, like, you know, just because this guy played for the Jacksonville Jaguars or this guy's going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, either of those moves are not good. I just think, you know, Andrew Norwell, I definitely like the move, but like we, in my opinion, got worse at the right guard position. I know Schweitzer is a serviceable starter, but like he's not an all-pro. He's not a Pro Bowler by any means. And also, because of the fact that Schweitzer had to move up to the starting right guard position, our depth, you know, it got worse. And I don't believe in Sadiq Charles, not necessarily because of his talent, but because of his availability. He's not necessarily the most, you know, or the least injury prone guy on this offensive line. And, you know, hopefully we can bring Cornelius Lucas back, or we could bring in another offensive lineman to shore up, you know, what is a pretty good position overall for us. But I don't know, man. It's kind of tough when, like Rigo said at the very top, offensive line and defensive line were our strengths last year. So, I mean, I don't know. But the next thing I wanted to discuss with you guys is the later round guys in the draft. So we talked about the first round, potentially guys that we could pick at pick 11, or if we trade back, maybe towards the end of the first round. But what are some second, third, fourth, so on and so forth guys that we potentially draft in that you would like to see here in DC?
Oh, I'll take it. So I mean, it just depends on how far certain guys will go. I love Darian Beavers at middle linebacker. Beavers from Cincinnati. He's huge, like 6 foot. Let me actually look it up. I always forget. He's some ridiculous size that's like, as a middle linebacker, you need that. He's one of them guys that could go head first into a guard or a center and shed. Like he, you know, stack and shed. We don't have anybody that can do that. Cole Holcomb improved mightily in coverage and run support. But he's still a guy that kind of makes the tackle right beyond the line of scrimmage. He's not at the line of scrimmage or before it. He's not penetrating because he's not strong enough. Darian Beavers is 6'4", and I believe like 250 or something like that. And he's not terrible in coverage. Like he's not just like you have to take him off the field on third and longs. Of course, it's not going to be a strength, but like if we can get a guy like that later, I think that would be excellent to allow James, because I think Jamin Davis ultimately probably just going to go back to his college weight. We're going to really just get him back to being a will linebacker. We're going to completely give up on the whole Mike thing. Maybe he'll take over that role we lost in Landon Collins. Like maybe he'll be that kind of hybrid linebacker safety. Just lose some weight, get back some more of that explosion, and just focus on being on the outside. I liked what I saw from him blowing up that one screenplay that one time. I think we should just have him doing more stuff like that. I don't want Jamin Davis ever dealing with a guard or a center ever again. So I think with us losing Landon Collins, he could basically try to take over that role. Him and Khalid Hudson can compete for that. So yeah, if we can get like a Darian Beavers like guy at middle linebacker later in the draft, I think that would be quite excellent. But there's all kinds of sleepers that we could be here for hours. Because I mean, the East-West Shrine Bowl, Brett Coleman pointed it out, and I was watching it too, like when it happened a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of talent there. I'm not sure if people have noticed, but some of the top performers at the combine came from the East-West Shrine Bowl. All the guys running the 4.2s and the 4.3s. So there's going to be crazy talent available later just because they played at lower competition levels.
Yeah, I mean, one guy I like, Chad Muma from Wisconsin. He would be a really good option because, like, you don't have to put him in the starting spot right away. You can if you need to. But again, I mean, he's more experienced, so he might transition better than someone like Jamin Davis who barely played. But he's a guy I really like, you know, good in coverage, solid as a run stopper, and can get to the quarterback as well if you need him. I think that's, you know, a lot of people sleep on that ability by him, but he can do that. You know, what's he got? Logan Wilson from Wisconsin a few years ago, got drafted to the Bengals. He's balling out. So yes, it's lower competition, but I do like him. I forgot the guy's name. Rico probably knows. Corner from like Montana or Montana State. He's kind of like a bigger guy. I think Washington met with him. He would be. I'm going to try to find his name later on in the stream, but he would be a good option. But I really like Chad Muma. As that linebacker. I don't know where he's going to go in the second, maybe the third, but he's a guy I really like.
You're not talking about the. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that we met with Chad Muma, just to let you know, at the combine as well. Like, we had an official sit down with him in like a conference room. It wasn't just walking by talking to him. We had like an official, everybody present, meet with them type of thing.
Yeah.
There were talks that we were interested in Troy Anderson as well, right? The linebacker from I think that's Montana State. Was that the guy you were talking about?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was seeing something. I forgot what it was, but I watched like a little breakdown on him, and I was interested.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, should be interesting. We have one less pick, right? We don't have a 3rd round pick this year, so we gotta hit with our first.
We got a 7th.
Yeah. And we've been doing pretty well with the 7th round picks the last couple of years, so I'll give you that. But I do want to ask. So the last 2 questions. So one of these is just for both of you guys. So where does this team stack up right now in the NFC East, in the NFC overall, right? With all these quarterbacks flocking to the AFC right now. And, is the future brighter now than it was before the offseason started for the Washington Commanders?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the future is necessarily brighter. I think this
was this the guy, by the way?
I think so. I think this season, the future is brighter, like, because I mean, Wentz is an upgrade over Heineke, so I think our win total will be higher this year than it was last year. I don't know about the future. I mean, really, we have to see how Wentz does this year to really tell if he can be that franchise guy. Because I still believe, like some people don't think he can go back. I mean, he might not go back to that 2017 Wentz, but like 2019 Wentz, like I feel people sleep on that. Like, you can win with 2019 Wentz, who actually carried them to the playoffs the last half of the year. So like, I feel like Wentz can maybe get to that 2019 version. If he can, you can win with that, because that's like a top 10 quarterback. That is a top 10 quarterback. So we'll see. And I think they just really didn't like this rookie draft class. And they were like, okay, I think for a lower price, I think Wentz has a better chance of being our franchise guy than one of these QBs. And we don't have to waste 3 years really determining if this guy is the guy. With like a rookie QB, that's what you're going to be doing. Like, it's hard to move on. Sometimes you can. The Cardinals did it, but it's hard to move on from a first-round rookie after a year. But I think overall, future is a little bit brighter, but it won't be until we, figure out that QB position.
Yeah, there was a lot of people out there who, we're trying to convince a lot of others that this quarterback class is better than it is. But I don't know. I just think the fact that NFL teams are so in need for a quarterback, and they're also like trading and signing these guys that aren't necessarily good right now, veteran options at the position, just tells you all you need to know. But go ahead, Rico.
Yeah, I'm team-wise, like looking directly at our team, I'm not necessarily sure if our future is brighter, but with all of the talent going to the AFC, and even our rivals like the Eagles and Cowboys, if anything, took a step back, didn't necessarily get better. I think from our surroundings, our future is brighter. But like us specifically, I don't feel like we improved mightily in any way other than the fact that Carson Wentz should be better than Taylor Heineke, definitely. And you could definitely argue he's at least a top 6 quarterback in the NFC. And so, when in doubt, you kind of have a chance there. If he plays well and stays healthy, he can be a top 6 quarterback. So it's not necessarily what we've done, it's what everybody else around us hasn't done, or who they've lost, why I feel like we have a better chance. Plus, last year we were one of the most hurt teams in the NFL. We got hit with COVID really hard, and we still won 7 games. And I just feel like it just can't be that bad injury-wise and players not being available as last year going into this year. I think our floor has to be 7 wins. With Taylor Heineke and all of those injuries and having the toughest schedule in the NFL to this year, there's no way we get that hurt again. If we do, I mean, it's just time to give up. Carson Wentz should be better than Taylor Heineke, and we also have the easiest schedule in the NFL. So we're going from the toughest, number 1, to the 32nd. So I just feel like naturally, at least this season, our floor should be 7 wins since we won 7 games last year. But y'all know me, man. If the quarterback ain't right, we ain't going nowhere for me. And so even though Carson Wentz, as optimistic as I'm gonna be about him, I think he's gonna be an upgrade over Taylor Heineke. But I'm not sure if he's ever going to be that guy that's our quarterback for the next 5 to 10 years. And even if he is, will he be able to compete with the Josh Allen? Will he be able to outduel? Because we saw, even with as great as the Bills defense is, ultimately you got to outduel the other quarterback. It doesn't matter how great your team is. Of course, a better team helps, but like when you get into that point where it's you versus Josh Allen, you versus Pat Mahomes, you versus these top guys, Justin Herbert, sometimes even an elite defense will get bested. By the end of the game, they're tired, and you need that quarterback that's going to make those plays and get those touchdowns. And I'm not sure if Carson Wentz will ever be able to compete. So I think there's a certain ceiling. I think we're going to be good, but I don't think we're Super Bowl contenders under what we currently have for sure right now.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing I'll say outside of the obvious X factor that is the quarterback position, that is Carson Wentz for the season. I think Chase Young needs to step up this season, guys. I really do. I know Pedro has been on here and heard me talk about, Chase Young and how I think he needs to sort of have a major third year in order for us to have a lot of successes here. But I firmly believe it. I know there's going to be people in the chat said, he's coming off a torn ACL. We should probably lower the expectations for him. One, he was the 2nd overall pick in the draft. 2nd overall only to Joe Burrow, who just led the Bengals to the Super Bowl. 2, Nick Bosa last year also came off a torn ACL, and he had a pretty good, I think, 3rd season as well. So, and this is for a guy, Chase Young, that a lot of scouts out there said was going to be better than both of the Bosas, was going to be, a generational talent. So he needs to step up. If he doesn't have at least maybe 9.5 sacks at the edge position, where sacks is literally the main stat, like I think it's going to be a downer of a year. And, we can't forget, even before the injury last year, he had 1.5 sacks through 10 games. Like,
yeah.
Can't forget that. We can't forget that.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I think Chase Young needs to just have not even a monster season, but just have like a Pro Bowl level season, at least coming off an ACL injury, which, can help us believe that he can be what we thought he would be at that number 2 overall pick. Like, because the ACL injury, I think it's somewhat of a factor, not a huge factor, but like it might be a big factor like the first half of the year, because you look at Joe Burrow, like totally different positions. Joe Burrow doesn't really rely on his athleticism as much as Chase Young. First half of the season, Joe Burrow was not great. Like, he was okay, but if you look at his numbers in the second half of the season, outstanding. So we might see something similar with Chase Young, and that's all. I want to see a second half of the season for Chase Young where it's like, okay, he has like 7 sacks in 8 games, something like that, to lead me to believe that he's back. If it's a little slow early on, okay, I'll understand it, as long as he does dominate in the second half of the year. And no, it doesn't need to always be sacks, but because like you said, Nati, like Jonathan Allen a couple years ago was dominant without getting sacks, but like Chase Young this year wasn't even really getting many pressures. And like, I need to see that, like, if he needs to at least, like, if he's not getting a ton of sacks, get a ton of pressures, like, because last year we could see like he was okay, but he wasn't like changing the game without getting sacks. Like, some players can still change the game without getting sacks. It's harder at the edge position, but he needs to step up for sure, have a much better year, because it's definitely disappointing this past year for sure.
And not calling him a bust. I would never say that. I'm just saying, like, he's gonna fall below expectations for the number 2 overall pick for a guy that, a lot of us thought was gonna be a generational guy. But that's all I'm saying.
I agree.
What's up, Rio?
Rio, I mean, go check out Rio's must-see DMV interview with Cam Curl, bro. This man's got Cam Curl on his show, and yeah, I think he uploaded it earlier today. Go make sure to check that out. So y'all say he's blonde, cloudy. No, I mean, I will say this: one content creator on this channel, Noah, has been on the Chase Young, Jadeveon Clowney train since like early last season. So not me. I'm not saying he's Jadeveon Clowney. All I'm saying is that, they're there's chirping out there.
That's his floor. I think that's his floor, which is still like he made an All-Pro, like a few All-Pros. He's still a good player. He just he didn't live up to expectations.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. We definitely need Chase Young to pick it up though. Like I agree. I don't think he's a bust, just like you said, but it's like time. Come on, Chase Young, 3rd year injury, but like you said, even before the injury, wasn't doing that well. It's time to step up, man. You're supposed to be the franchise player. When we unveiled the new jerseys and everything, you're one of the 3 guys we're talking about. Josh Allen got his big money because he deserved it. Terry McLaurin's gonna get his big money because he deserved it. It's time for you, Chase Young, for your, for the only calling card that you have, to not only be just being a 2nd overall pick. That's really only serious accomplishment so far.
Yeah. The last question. So this is particularly for Pedro, of course, because this guy is it's about to be a Hokie. Thoughts on the Hokies, man? Yesterday, bowing out of the tournament, and just their overall run, through the ACC tournament, and falling up short in the NCAA tournament. What are your thoughts on their season as a whole?
Hey, it was a good run. They were terrible to start out the year. And if that didn't happen, they would have been a much higher seed. Like they probably would have been that 6th seed instead of an 11th seed. Maybe would have played a different team. And, that could have helped out their outcome. Yesterday just wasn't their night. Couture was not, like, he was insane in that ACC championship, was not good yesterday. I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. It was nice winning the ACC championship, first time in school history. But yeah, let's hope they're better next year. But yeah, they just got dominated yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, well, I don't want to hold you guys up too much longer because it is Saturday. I want you guys to enjoy your day. So thank you so much to Pedro Schmith, Rico from Street Scores. Thank you guys so much for joining me. It's always great conversation on here and great insight from these 2 guys. Make sure to go sub them up on all their channels, all their platforms. And yeah, I do want to shout out everybody in the chat that joined today. A lot of people in the chat today. Brandon Williams, of course, Jairus Corners, Kurt Smith, Patrick West, Tone, Outlaw King, Michael Lugar, Yemi, Captain JR, Door Gunner, and JC, James Panda. Man, a lot of people today. 12, Kevin Mitchell, King Shot, Ali. I think you guys like these Saturday early afternoon streams. I feel like that gets the most buzz. And of course Rio at the end, Dave and DC as well. But you guys want to plug anything before we sign off?
I mean, just hope you guys subscribe to my channel, Pedro Schmith on YouTube, the name that is on the screen right now. And I posted a video yesterday, kind of breaking down our cap space, going in depth into our contracts for each player we signed. So go ahead and check that out if you're wondering about how much cap space we have left, if we can sign some guys. And yeah, follow my Twitter as well. Appreciate you having us on too, Nati.
No problem.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having us on, man. Definitely anytime. And y'all can find me on Twitter, Street Scores ATL. Definitely follow me there, and always tweeting about some funny stuff, some Burgundy and Gold stuff, and some Georgia stuff. So let's get it.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if you guys know, the draft is coming up. So even after this whole free agency wave is over with, these guys are the best guys to sub up, to follow on all their platforms heading into the draft, have great insight. So but yeah, shout out to everyone once again in the chat, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the DMV Sports Zone channel, where we like to post fire content like this as much as possible. Also, go follow our Twitter page at DMV Sports Zone, Instagram page, all lowercase DMV Sports Zone, and the TikTok, the TikTok by Abdullah. And I think Evan and Noah are starting to get more involved on there. Me, we'll see. But get out to the TikTok, have great content on there as well. And have a great rest of your Saturday, guys, and see you on the next one.
Peace.
Thank you.